I am in New South Wales, Australia, and I just so happen to be talking to one of the top ranked featherweight fighters in Australia, New Zealand. I'm talking about Justin Lockjaw Van Heerden. Justin, pleasure to have you, mate. Thank you so much for being here. And not that long ago, you were just doing battle in the cage, and here we are in the wintertime. You got a bout coming up on 16 July. I'm excited for that, and I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, so straight back into it. Didn't really taper off or doing any sort of relaxation, I guess you could say. It was just straight back to it. Obviously, I got a bunch of my teammates are in camp for fights too, so just went straight back to work. Got offered the fight with Mohammad Alavi, and was just like, all right, let's do it. Let's get after it.
Is Mohammad Alavi? This is a guy who is 155 pounds. So don't worry, everyone. I will go ahead and make sure everyone understands what weight I'm talking about. In America, 155 pounds, down under 70 kilos. He's a guy that he's fought at different weight classes, though, if I'm not mistaken, previously. So this is an adjustment for him. Are you kind of surprised that this was a name that was offered for you?
Not really. I think, with Mohammed, it's a sort of weird one because I feel like he's undefeated, but sort of looking at the guys that he's fought, the names that sort of stand out on his record currently for me, obviously you can't look past the fact that he fought Rodolfo Marquez in his last outing, who's easily the most experienced featherweight in the region. Albeit, he's the guy's on a bit of a decline in recent times. But he's been around the game for a hot minute, man. Like, he was training at Nova União alongside Jose, all those sort of top tier guys. He was on a tear at one stage. I think he was like on a 12-fight win streak and like pretty much on the cusp of some big things. And then obviously he fought my current teammate and current world champion Alex, and then just got starched in that fight. And then after that, I think it was kind of just a bit of a downhill, but it's still a good name to have on your record. And even in that fight, Alavi experienced a couple of moments of like slight adversity with Rodolfo sort of teeing off on him a little bit. And I think that it showed some things as well, that obviously, that although Alavi's a very aggressive sort of fighter, very, he's a hammer type fighter, he likes being the hammer, he likes pressing forward. So to see him kind of experience a bit of, pushback and adversity in that fight was quite interesting as well. And then the previous fight was at super lightweight, which is, I think, was 74 kilos or something. And he fought a guy named Cody Barnwell, who is a big dude. And the fight, I remember watching that fight going, like, I was surprised at how Alavi was able to sort of hang in that fight. And obviously, I think it got stopped for a cut. And ultimately, they judged the fight based on how it played out prior to the cut. And he was able to get the win on that one as well. But yeah, it was interesting. He's definitely, I think he's fought a lightweight before as well. But the majority of his fights have been a featherweight, I'm pretty sure.
Can you talk a little bit, Justin? So my question is more geared toward Eternal MMA. I'm relatively new to the promotion. I do know that it is one of the premier, if not the premier, promotion in Australia. Can you talk a little bit about what has that promotion been like in your experience? I know that you have been in others as well, but for a majority of your career, at least in your professional career anyway, you seem to have found a home at Eternal. What has that experience been like for you? And can you talk a little bit about how it differs compared to some of the other promotions you've been involved with?
Yeah, well, Eternal, 100%. Eternal's easily the biggest promotion, in the country, in the region, really. Like, they're just absolutely killing it. And the platform's so much bigger now as well. And, they've got so much happening, and they're branching out and expanding even more. So, when I initially first fought on Eternal, it was like they were kind of starting, still kind of in their early days and building up, and then to see it just skyrocket in those sort of last couple of years has just been insane. But Ben Vickers and Cam O'Neill, the two guys behind it, are just they're quality guys to sort of be dealing with. The athletes get treated well, everything's run super smoothly, very well. You're very well looked after. And obviously, in the sport of MMA, there's always going to be the topic of like, people talking, like, even at the top level, people are talking about money and financial sort of side of things. But for a promotion that's like a regional sort of promotion for the Oceanic region with Australia, New Zealand, and et cetera, man, even in that front, like from what I've been able to gather for myself and sort of, dealing with some of the other people, like financially, people are getting looked after as well, man. And I think that's a good thing, because they've sort of built themselves up. They have all these people that have been fighting, from like the early days. And then you still seeing some of these people getting in there now and still scrapping. So, and you kind of seeing them being rewarded for that, which is always cool, because they know that they've got this great thing happening now. They've got this big platform and they've got this talent pool they can rely on. So they're just, they're quite good at looking after all the fighters, setting up these crazy cool shows. The production value is obviously awesome. The exposure is good. It's on UFC Fight Pass. So yeah, it's a no-brainer to sort of fight for Eternal. Obviously there's a few other promotions in the country that I fought on that are also, that have been pretty awesome to sort of deal with and fight on. But the comparison's pretty hard to make to Eternal. It's sort of, it's a whole nother ball game now.
One of the things that I find so interesting about you and your career, being as you're in Australia, one of my friends lives in Sydney, and just in knowing him over the past year and the dialogue I've had with him since the pandemic, it's just been a very different way of life, especially for you guys. I think it's safe to say a lot more strict in Australia compared to pretty much anywhere else in the world that I can think of. Well, I bring this up because despite all this, you've been very active. You've been able to get a lot of fights. Can you talk a little bit about how difficult was that? What sort of hoops did you have to jump through to stay so active amidst the pandemic?
Yeah, that's been obviously now things are like pretty well, I guess, back to some sort of sense of normality. But during the pandemic, especially like early 2020. So in February 2020, I fought Rodolfo Marquez on a promotion, Coastal Combat, for their featherweight title. I fought Rodolfo, won, and then it was like straight after that, the world got hit with this COVID sort of wave, and no one knew it was happening, and everywhere was like sort of shut down and isolations and lockdowns. And I was kind of like, well, what does this mean for me fight wise? And then obviously there was sort of that big break in that year for everyone, because like no one was doing anything. And then I was like, well, man, any opportunities that get given to me, I've got to take. So I'm like trying to figure out where can I fight. Like I was trying to do anything. I was trying to look for opportunities everywhere. Got offered to go and represent Australia at the Combat Sambo Worlds. And then based on the pandemic situation with countries sort of closing their borders and that, they pretty much told me, they're like, you can come to Russia and compete, but you're not going to be able to leave. So they were even talking about what ended up happening is I'd get like temporary citizenship to stay in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and part of me was like, man, I could do this, and I could just be there, like take this experience, stay there, train while I'm there, just kind of take it as an opportunity to sort of chip away and, improve the skills I have, and then pick up some other ones, because I was like, this could be like one of those sort of experiences. But then my daughter was born during the pandemic, and, that sort of changed the perspective of me. I was like, I can't be away for who knows how long, it could be, because at that time, no one knew it was happening. So I was like, man, I can't be away for that long and like not see my daughter. So I kind of put the brakes on that. And then I think it was like later in that year, like towards the end of 2020, the opportunity came for me to be able to have a fight on a promotion against the guy, a mutual opponent that Mohammad and I have had, and Cody Barnwell. So what happened was he was fighting on a show, XFC. He was matched to fight. I was at the weigh-ins supporting a teammate of mine who was weighing in for his fight and going through the motions. And Cody's opponent like showed up to the weigh-ins, and he was like severely compromised from his weight cut, I guess. He like fainted at the weigh-ins, and then we went on the scale, he passed out again. So the promoters obviously like to his team, like, can't let him fight. Like, this is like, we got to get this guy sorted. And then I saw Cody just standing there, and I was like, man, this guy's got no opponent now. And I looked at the promoter, and I was like, man, I'll fight him. Like I'm here, I'm ready to go. And he was like, all right. So we kind of I said to Cody, I was like, because he was kind of like, he was on weight already for a lightweight fight. So I was like, all right, well, and I pretty much jumped on the scale. I think I was 72 kilos. So I think what's that, like 160,
Mhm.
163.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, because he's a big guy, he's a big dude, cuts a lot of weight. So he wasn't too phased. So I end up taking a fight at the weigh-ins with the guy. And my thought process behind that was like, well, they're doing an outdoor show during a pandemic. They're getting away with it. They're having to tick all these boxes. I'm like, this might be the last time I get to fight for a hot minute. Like, who knows?
Right.
So I ended up fighting Cody. Fight was a weird one. It was like like it was like I got clipped with an elbow. It was like got clipped with an elbow that like stung me like off the cage, like when we disengaged off the cage. He hit me with an elbow, went down, caught myself, stood back up. When I was off, I was like off balance. I was like coming back to my feet, and he threw a right hand that kind of like skimmed off my head, but I was off balance. So I was like sort of shucked me back down. I caught myself on the mat, jumped back up, had my guard up, and like stepped forward. And then next thing, the ref's like in front of me, and he's like waving off the fight, and I'm like, what is going on? And the ref in question has ref a number of my fights, and he's like he's done stuff for the UFC and stuff when they've done events in Australia, and he's like a very experienced ref. So I was kind of like I was talking to him in the cage. I'm like, Pete, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, and then he's like, no, it's over. And like, I remember looking at Cody, he was standing across the cage, he was real confused. And then Pete kind of went away for a bit, and we were looking at each other like, are we gonna like, and he's like, we're gonna keep fighting, right? And I'm like, I think so. And then they came back and they're like, no, the fight's over. So I was like, fuck, all right. And it was a weird one, and it was like it kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth a little bit. But at the time, then I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, yeah, but it's shit, but like it could be worse. It could be the other way where it wasn't stopped quick enough. So I kind of just like was like, all right, whatever, I'll just wear this and then kind of go from there. And then and I thought also the thought process to me was like, well, I just got to fight during a time when no one's really getting to fight. So I was kind of like, okay, let's just count our blessings.
I think that's crazy that you're going in to support one of your teammates, not even in fight mode, and then the situation becomes what it is, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, give me the gloves, I'll go. That's got to be kind of crazy too, because it's like you weren't in fight mode per se. Like, yes, I know you're active, I know you're in shape, I know you're doing everything that you need to do, training, but without a training camp and without getting into like that right mindset, that can kind of put you at a disadvantage in a big way.
It's a big risk, right? It's big risk, big reward, doing stuff like that. And I've done it, a few times before. So that's the thing with so I've, I know people are probably, and like, especially with my last fight, looking at the odds before the fight, like that they had for the betting odds and stuff like that, I can understand people are like sort of overlooking me and placing me as an underdog, but I'm enjoying that because I understand. You look at my record, it's 9-5. You're like, oh, okay, it's 9-5, whatever. You're like, it's it's nothing too fancy. They're looking at it like that, but if you look into it in more detail, like if you look at it just in my weight class, like I got featherweight, like a couple of times I fought out of my weight class because I couldn't get fights, so I was like had to just take opportunities given to me. Sometimes it paid off, sometimes it didn't. But that's it. It's big risk, big reward, right? But at featherweight, I'm 8-3. I'm 4-1 in my last 5 with 3 finishes. So, like, but you've got to take it for the package, for a whole package, for what it is. And yeah, okay, there was a couple of times where I fought up in weight, didn't go my way, but there were times where it did. So it's kind of like, you got to sort of take what you can get. And then, that's always going to be a thing in this sport, with the peaks and the valleys being like the way they are. Like things are just going to be like here, sometimes they're here, then they're back here. And when it's working out, it's great, and people are like on board. When it's not, people are like, they're just going to be like, naturally kind of jump off the bandwagon, I guess, a little bit. But I guess that's a thing for me that's never really fazed me. Like I know how good I am, I know how good I can be, and being based where I'm at now at freestyle, like I just feel like that's what's coming together now. So yeah, but like we sort of said, man, I just had to take these opportunities when they were coming to me because for a number of reasons, this pandemic's happening, I couldn't get fights at my weight, so I'm like, I've just got to take, I've got to stay active, I've got to kind of keep competing, I've got to keep improving. So I've just got to take these challenges as they're sort of presented to me. But yeah, some of it's paid off, some of it hasn't.
I think one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of you is because you actually fight. And here's what I mean by that. I'll qualify this. I feel, and maybe it's easy for me to say, but as a spectator, but I feel like there are a lot of younger fighters out there that are looking for easy fights, that are cherry picking, that are very, very picky about when they go out and who they go out against. You're the type
Yeah.
of guy where you look at your record, it's you'll I mean, have you ever refused to fight from at any point in time?
Not once.
See, that's my
I've made that
point.
clear.
Yeah, that's my point. And not everybody has that mentality. Not everybody is like they're not willing to take whatever name shows up on the paper in front of them. They're very selective. They're very choosy. You're going out there. You're staying active, and I think that's a testament because you're not overly concerned about what your record is. It's like, no, I know how good I am, and if you think I'm an easy fight, then come out and fight me because I'll fight you. And I just think that's kind of refreshing to see because not every single person is like that. And I kind of wanted to pan out and talk about your career at large.
Yeah.
Your amateur career, you it was a 5-4 record from what Tapology says. Now, sometimes it's not always the most accurate. Sometimes they leave fights out. But what clicked in you to made you decide, like, you know what, like, despite that, I know 5-4, I know it's not the best, but you finished people. Not a lot of your fights went to a decision. The ones that you're able to win, you're able to finish guys with striking, with your chokes. There's a couple that went to a decision. What clicked in your mind? Like, was that part of your game plan all along? Like, I know I'm going to go pro. What told you that the time was right to turn professional in 2017?
Yeah, well, being, when I was still an amateur, like, I'll be honest, man, like the place I was at gym wise and stuff like that, and even just as as a younger guy, like a young man, I was kind of like, I was just sort of, I still think I wasn't I didn't feel comfortable or sort of at a place where I was kind of like, all right, I can cement myself here and actually, do this and do it properly. So I was kind of just playing with what was presented to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and with the amateur side of things, like, obviously I was approaching it like just the time in the cage. My thought process was, I just need to get time in the cage and get these fights and compete. Because, I want to experience as much as I can so that when I go pro, nothing's going to be out of the ordinary. Nothing's going to surprise me. Nothing's going to catch me off guard, So I had fights where, I got some quick finishes. I had fights that would drawn out fights back and forth, just standing there punching each other in the face for 3 rounds. I had fights where I got caught real quick and put away. So I was like, I had horrible weight cuts. I had good weight cuts. I had, like all that sort of stuff. So I was kind of like, so by the time I decided to go pro, it just kind of just felt right. It was like, all right, this felt like the time to do it. And then, but then even then, I went pro, made my pro debut. Going into my, like 2 weeks before my pro debut, I was sparring. I threw a kick, caught an elbow, broke my foot. But I was like, there's no way I'm missing out on this. Like, this is what I've been working towards, to finally be here now doing this, and this is where it matters. So, like, the fight went ahead, got in there, just did my thing, was able to secure a pretty quick, like, rear naked choke finish. And then realistically, I should have had the support system around me from my coach and that to be like, all right, let's take a step back, let's heal the foot, let's recover, let's kind of like, you've just fought like a bunch of times back to back to back to back, like, let's just kind of chill out. And then, that didn't happen, and then I got offered another fight pretty much 3 weeks later, after I made my pro debut. And literally that following week, exact same thing, same kick, caught an elbow or a knee or something, blew my foot out even more, broke some more bones in my foot, had a cast on and then a boot. So I wasn't throwing all stuff I could do for that period of time. But I was like, I'm not pulling out of the fight. I'm just going to, on the night, I'm just going to be able to do what I do. And like, I remember the promoter, Camp for Eternal, he picked me up at the airport, my coach and I up at the airport. And I was sitting in the front seat of the car, and he saw the cast in the boot, and he's like, "What is going on?" And we're driving to the weigh-ins, and I put my foot up on the dash, and I got some scissors, and I was slicing the cast off my leg, like on the way to the weigh-ins, and then just like walked in, weighed in, made weight, started rehydrating, got in the next night and fought. Didn't go my way, but like, yeah, it was just kind of, it was a crazy experience. And then even then I was kind of like, I wasn't sort of like too phased about the fact that the fight didn't go my way, because I was like, it was a tough opponent, short notice turnaround. I was like, you know what, like this, we've taken this gamble, because had it paid off, I'd be going around being like, man, look at that, killed it, and everyone would be like, fucking killed it, you're a beast. So, you can't really read into those things too much. And then, we started sort of building up from there.
That answers so many questions, because I was wondering, like, when you started in your professional career, like, did you feel down? And I think you just answered that question. It was like, you knew it was a gamble, you knew you were fighting injured, but you were just going to go ahead and roll the dice anyway. And that like brings a lot of clarity into like just kind of how you approach your career. And when you think about everything that you've experienced to date, you're a young guy, but you have a lot of experience. You fought a lot of tough guys. Of course, you throw the curveball that is the pandemic right in the middle of it. And one thing I see is like, and you'll laugh because I know if I'm talking about it, you've thought about this a million times. It's you win 2 fights, you lose a fight. You win 2 fights, you lose a fight. So what is the key to like going on a tear and then potentially getting up to the big leagues?
Yeah. Well, I look, I can look at those sort of things, and then I can, because I lived through it, so I can experience it and go, and I know the sort of the situation behind it. But it's never going to be things that I'm going to talk about in relation to the fight. Like I'm not going to bring up things that are surrounding fights and be like, and be like, okay, well, this was happening and this was happening. But like a lot of the sort of situations, when I look at some of my losses, I'm like, I can look at it and go, okay, there's a couple there where I'm like, just wasn't my night. Dude is better than me on the night. I can wear that, I can absorb that. And then I look at some of these other ones and I'm like, and it's not even a case of like, I like so much that I lost the fight within the cage. It was like, I lost the fight based on like just the as good as it could be going into the fight. Like I look like at featherweight, I fought like my most recent loss at featherweight was against Rod Costa, who was a short notice replacement for an already short notice title fight that I took after I just fought when Mohammad actually, the guy I'm fighting, he hurt his hand, was scheduled for a title fight with Jack Jenkins, the current champ. And then they offered it to us at the time during like, Alex and Joe were overseas. They just had COVID. They were stuck overseas. Then they got the opportunity to do the Ultimate Fighter. So they were away for extended time. And going into that fight, like I didn't even have them with me. So like my first 2 fights at Freestyle, I didn't have Joe Lopez and Alex Volkanovski in my corner. So like I was kind of like, all right, the first fight I got a pretty dominant decision victory and just kind of did my thing. And then when I fought Rod Costa, I just that fight's an evident example of like I needed my coaches to be there to give me the adjustments to make to be able to like go out there and get the victory, like you've seen in these recent fights. Because the first half of that fight, like the first half of that round, I felt like everything was just working beautifully. I was working from range. I was sort of teeing off on him. I knew that he necessarily wasn't going to try and wrestle with me, although he has really great grappling pedigree. I knew he wasn't going to try and wrestle with me. And then I kind of, it was just, I got clipped with like a shot when I got a bit lazy with my distance. And then that should have been the moment where I know Alex and Joe would have been there and give me those adjustments. Like, all right, let's do this. But I didn't have that to fall back on. So I just kind of, you kind of get stuck in the one track mind type of thing. And then, I ended up, pursuing the same line, didn't switch things up, got caught, got put away. So I lost that fight. And that one stings. I'll be honest. I look at all my fights and like my losses that I've had, but that's the only one that really stings. Because I'm like, man, I know that had I had them with me in the corner, I would have, I win that fight nine out of 10 times. I win that fight. So I'm kind of like, that's the only fight I look at where I'm like, God damn it, man. I can't believe that's a loss on my record. But that's the only loss I've had at featherweight in like the last like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I wanted to ask is, you in your career thus far, you haven't always been at Freestyle. You've been at other gyms. You've dealt with other coaches before. Now that you're at Freestyle, and you're with the coaches that you're with, can you just kind of describe a little bit, like, what has that experience been like for you? Of course, we all know who your coach is. It's one, but one of the things that I'm venturing to guess, and you go ahead, and I'd be really curious to hear your input on this as well. It's like, yeah, like you can be like a great fighter, the world's best, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be like a good coach automatically. They're
yeah,
similar skill sets, but they're different skill sets. What makes
yeah.
Alex such a great coach, and why is it a good fit for you?
Yeah. So obviously at Freestyle, man, I feel like for the first time in my career when I made the move to join Freestyle, like this is the first time where I actually feel I feel at peace and comfortable, and I feel like I found a home for myself. And I'm at the place where I know that I'm gonna reach the pinnacle of the sport where I want to get to, because I've found the perfect fit for me. Like my previous gym that I was at, Southside MMA, which is in Queensland, I was training under a gentleman named Pasha Stolia, Ukrainian gentleman, very experienced, very good coach. Actually, the first Ukrainian guy to receive a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He was a good fit for me, and that was outside of where I'm at now at Freestyle. That was the only time where I actually felt like comfortable at a gym, had trust in my coach, and actually, it felt like I had someone that was actually supporting me, doing things for the right reasons, and it wasn't just, it wasn't being just a yes man. It was like, he was treating me how you should be treated, and the relationship was really good. So I feel like that set me up real well to get to where I am now at Freestyle. So when I made the move, it was like clockwork, man. Like I came down for a couple of days, sort of checked out the gym, checked out the area, spent some time with the guys, did some work, and I was kind of like, all right, because it's a big sort of thing to do, to pack up and drive 2,000 kilometers to a whole new place and kind of just take that gamble. So I was like, all right, got myself down here. Alex was already in camp for Ortega, the first camp before everything went pear-shaped. They're already like 3 weeks in. I had a fight booked myself. So, I remember just walking in that first day after I moved down, and walked in. It was a sparring session. I like touched gloves, got after it, started doing some rounds with the guys. And I just remember after my first couple of rounds, I took a moment and I was just kind of like, all right, this is it. And then, obviously the credentials of Joe speak for themselves, and like the body of work he's been able to do, and the results that he's been able to achieve. If you look at Alex's career from like where he started and, obviously where he's at now, it's a no-brainer. And then, he's very experienced. He's a very good coach. He's been around the game for many, 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 many years in multiple avenues. And then obviously Alex is, he's the current world champion. The guy's only lost once before in his entire career. He's on like a ridiculous win streak. He's I said this all the time on my podcast, he's one of those people where it's like, take what he's doing right now, absorb it, thrive on it. And actually, don't take it for granted. You don't want to sit around and be like when he's done and be like, man, I had the opportunity to watch that guy do his thing and I didn't take advantage of it, But then when it comes to the coaching side of things, like people aren't going to always see this, but behind closed doors and that, but the guy is so selfless, man. Like he's the only person, like no one would blame that dude if he came into the gym, did his training and then just left and was like, all right, I'm going to go like relax, whatever, man, you do you. But he's just not that type of dude. He's completely selfless. He's coaching, even while he's in camp, he's still coaching like, some of us and like the other upcoming guys and anyone, obviously when he's in camp, we're getting a few of the other sort of guys in the fight in the UFC, like Josh Kulabau, Jamie Malaki, Tyson Pedro. These people are coming through, but so Volk will be in camp, but he'll like still be coaching, still be sharing his knowledge, helping people improve their games, and breaking things down to such a fine detail point where you're just kind of like, okay, this is insane. And then that alongside with Joe being there, like the two of them kind of bouncing off each other and coming together to sort of coach you and teach you things and improve on things, and pick out the avenues where there's things that you can exploit in upcoming fights. Like I just sit around and I'm like, man, I can't believe I have like literally two of the greatest minds in the sport that are my coaches now and are in my corner for my fights. So I think, yeah, 100% where I'm based now at Freestyle, having Joe and Alex as my coaches, and not just having Alex as another coach, like actually, he's one of my main training partners. I'm training with the world champion in my weight class daily. So man, I'm blessed. I'm comfortable. I feel at home. I feel like I've been here for years. Like I've been here for just over a year now. I feel like I've been here for years. And that translates, like if you kind of see, and I'm sure if people are following the gym social media and sort of that sort of stuff, and even just the guys, there's the banter there. There's just the sort of camaraderie, the sort of fun environment, but we do the work there. And I feel like that's shown in my recent fights, but also, shows across the board from our amateurs to the very top to, if you look at Alex's performances inside the cage, like, we know when to have our jokes and banter and mess around, but the work's being done and the knowledge is there. So I feel like it's a no-brainer for me, man. I've won an Australian title already. That was my first goal. And then I just said to myself, the next one's the world title. So I know where I'm at. I'm going to get there because I have two of the best people in the sport behind me. And I'm constantly being exposed to top athletes and, he's really good in mixed martial artists. So it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer. I just do the work and it's going to just happen.
Justin, you're originally from South Africa and you emigrated to Australia and you rep South Africa. I know like your heritage, like your country, obviously it's very, very important to you. You used to go by the name the Springbok. And for people who don't know what that is, it's like a gazelle of sorts, but it's a big deal it's a big deal in South Africa. It's like the bald eagle in America or the kangaroo in Australia. It's the same exact deal. That was your nickname for a while. You're Lockjaw now. So I have to ask, like, why'd you change your name? That's like the first question I had for you, actually. And I'm just now getting to it.
Obviously, well, even like when my fight name was the Springbok, like I didn't even really choose that either. I just remember walking out for one of my amateur fights and the announcer just took it upon himself to just kind of give me that name. So I was like, I guess that's just it now. Like I guess that just sticks. But yeah, no, I was in camp. We were in camp for when we actually did the second when Alex was doing the second camp for Ortega, and I was doing work with the boys. Like we were grinding together, and like it's no secret, the wrestling, the grappling pedigree is like high for me. That is, my base that I started with. And a few times, in camp, there was like I'd get a hold of some of the guys and put the squeeze on a bit and stuff like that, and then it just became like a running joke or like a running sort of thing that if I get a hold of you, like you're pretty well screwed. So you like can't let that happen. And then I just came into the gym the one day and all the boys are just sort of sitting there like, and then they're like, you got to change your fight name. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, we're changing your fight name. I was like, to what? And then they're like, it's got to be Lockjaw. And they're like, why? And they're like, because once you lock on, that's it. Like you just fuck, you can't get out.
I like it.
I was like, okay. And then, and then next thing I know, Joe's like, yep, nah, Lockjaw, that's it. And I'm like, all right, well, if Joe's saying it, the boys are saying it. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So yeah, it felt like a necessary change, and I feel like it's relevant.
The other thing that's relevant, the nicknames may change, but I think it's safe to say that you'll always represent South Africa. I know how important that is to you. Can you talk a little bit about like what would that mean for you? Like obviously, when I think of South Africa, I think of rugby right away. I don't think about mixed martial arts. There are really only a handful of you guys that are competing at a very, very high level. Can you talk a little bit, like, what would that mean for you to be able to go to like Bellator, to go to the UFC, and to be able to represent your country? Like, what would that like mean for you at a stage to that degree?
Yeah, that'd be crazy for me to be able to do that. There's a couple of like South African athletes that are, kind of doing their thing at the moment, but like you said, not too many. And for me to be able to get to that top level of the sport, represent my South African heritage, potentially be the first person to win a world title from South Africa, like in an organization like Bellator, the UFC, one championship, whatever, PFL, who knows? That would be, that'd be a crazy sort of thing for me. It'd be obviously, I'm immigrated to Australia. I've been living in Australia for a number of years. I'm a citizen here. Like, I love this country. I'm pretty proud. I'm a proud Australian as well. So for me to be able to do that would be insane. It'd be cool to represent my heritage, the country where I was born, but then at the same time, still fly that Australian flag pretty proudly and kind of showcase the same sort of thing. Show that I'm just another guy that's based in a small town, in a small gym that just happens to have the best mixed martial artist on the planet that comes through the doors and one of the best coaches to ever do it. So, and that's all we really need, really, is just the work we do, and that's it, just hard work. I feel like that's the main thing. It'll be cool to sort of showcase my heritage on the world stage and kind of do that, but also just to show that it's been hard work. It hasn't, I might have, you might have like the talent when it comes to, certain areas and avenues in the sport, but the hard work is going to be the thing that's represented alongside that. I look at my parents and I go, how hard they work, and what they've done throughout my life to provide my brother and I the opportunities that they've given us. Like, we lived in America for a period of time before we moved back to South Africa, and then we moved to Australia, and everything that I've sort of had along the way has been a direct result of my parents just working hard. So that's kind of always stuck, and I'm kind of like, it make me really proud to represent my family, my country, where I was born, and then just the hard work that's gotten me to that point. It'd be like a combination of a few things.
I would imagine for Volk, it would be a really nice feeling too to know that he was able to have a hand in bringing somebody up. He does, obviously never met the guy, but he seems to be like one of the good ones. I can't recall ever watching a mixed martial artist at a professional level fight who's asking his opponent that he's beat to a bloody pulp, "Are you sure you want to keep fighting?" And he did that when he fought the Korean Zombie the last time. I don't know if everyone caught that. I want to say, I don't recall exactly which round it was, but he had put the
fourth.
licking on him real good. And honestly, the ref probably could have stepped in. It probably, like, the corner, I'm surprised his corner, the Korean Zombie's corner, didn't stop it. But he asked him, like, "Do you want to keep fighting?" For him to show like any sort of like concern, because fighting is such a primal thing. For him to like ask his opponent that, I was like, wow, that's like the first time I've ever heard like a fighter ask another fighter, like, "Are you sure you want to keep going?" Like, and man, he wasn't. He was being sincere too. He wasn't.
It's genuine.
Yeah, he was like genuinely concerned for his well being, I felt.
And that's just how he is, man. That's just the type of guy he is. He's honestly one of the nicest human beings you could meet in your life. Like, the guy has just so much time for people. Look at the people in the gym. He's obviously he's a proud family man. He's a good dad, like proud husband. The guy's he's just a genuinely good guy. Like, and the example of just a blue collar guy that just did the work, does the work, continues to do the work, and then just reaps the rewards. But yeah, super nice. Like, literally, and that's him. Like, him asking Zombie if he's wants to continue. That's just a genuine. That's just how Alex is. Like, I'll be sparring that guy, and we're sparring. We're actually like getting after it, and he might like clip me with a shot, and it might not even have been that bad. And he's like, "Oh shit, sorry." Like, and then he'll just keep going. Like, and then we'll keep sparring. But he's like, you can tell it's just genuine. He's like, "Oh shit, like, are you okay? Like, was that all good? Like, sorry if that was too hard or what?" Like, and just like, I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm like, just let's go. Don't worry about it. Like, let's just get after it. Like, let's go. And I kind of sometimes I'm like, I'm trying to like just throw a bit of like, not like small trash talk his way to kind of be like, it's all right. Let's just do it. Like, let's just go. But he's just so nice. He's so dangerous. So talented when it comes to the sport of mixed martial arts. But the guy's just so genuinely nice too that it's like, all right. That's why I like, man.
I felt his true colors showed.
I just feel lucky.
Yeah, his true colors showed during that fight, and it definitely took me aback. Justin, before I let you go, I kind of wanted to ask, as far as winter of 2022 is concerned. Now, everyone hold on to your fanny packs. I know it's summertime in the US, but we're not in the US right now. We're in Australia, so chill out. So I know it's wintertime for you. With that being said, right now, what do you want to accomplish before the end of the year's out? Like once we start heading into spring and summer for you, like I know you're at a point in your career where it's like, okay, I'm 28 years old. I'm getting into my athletic prime. You have to have a plan. You have to have goals. What are some of your goals before the end of winter, beginning of spring?
I set out this year at the start of the year. I looked at it and I was like, what I want to do is I want to have 3 fights minimum for 3 finishes. That was my goal. Because the way I looked at it, I was like, all right, if I get 3 fights, 3 finishes, that moves my record to 10-5. I'll be on a decent win streak. I'll have 3 finishes over like some of the, some talented talented featherweights. And then, that'll put me in a really good spot to kind of like, cement myself as being one of, if not the best featherweight in the country. And I'm on track to do that. I'm not looking past these guys when I'm getting in there going like, I mean, I am in some sense because you have to, like you said, you have to have goals, you have to have a plan. Like there's a finite amount of time in this sport that you get, and that differs, because that could change drastically. You could get injured, something could happen. So I respect the people when I'm preparing to fight them and I'm going to get in there with them and that. But at the same time, I'm still confidently thinking about my goal that I set for myself. I said I wanted to have a minimum of 3 fights this year. The 3 finishes. I've had 2 so far, 2 finishes. So, I'm fighting Mohammad in July 16th on Eternal. I'm on track to do that. I'm on track to hit that goal, put myself in that position. And then my next fight after this, without a doubt, I'm fighting on the #1 promotion, which is Eternal, for the featherweight title, which is going to put me in a really, really, really good position. If I am fortunate enough to round out my year like that by fighting for the title at the end of the year, winning that belt, it puts me in a really good spot, man. I got to defend that belt a couple of times, and now we're talking about some bigger opportunities, on the world stage, and that's kind of that's my goal. I said to myself when I beat Rodolfo Marquez and I won that Australian title, I was like, all right, that's off the list. I won an Australian title. Obviously, it'd be really cool, and it's going to be a big bonus and feather in my cap to win the Eternal featherweight title as well, being that the platform is so big now, and it is without a doubt the biggest promotion in the region. But my goal from that very second was a world title, and that's my focus. So yeah, I'm going to go into this fight with Mohammad fully prepared, fully ready, fully respectful of the man and the abilities and the skills that he has, in front of me. But I'm coming to finish him, put him away, move myself to 10-5, have a 3 fight win streak with 3 finishes, and kind of just put myself right up there as being the top guy in the region. He's 7-0. He's fought a bunch of good guys, but he's another good feather in my cap, man. I've already beaten the 2 most experienced featherweights in the region, so I beat this dude who's undefeated and an absolute monster, and been able to go out there and just do his thing. It's going to benefit me tremendously.
What are the chances once you obtain the belt that on the other arm you'll get Luigi?
I've been thinking about this because my brother and I spoke about this, and then he said, he's like, surely you're gonna have to like finish that arm off and get like a full-on sleeve. Yeah, I'll have Bowser, Luigi, I'll have like the whole gang will be on my right arm. On my left arm, there was always just going to be stick to my South African heritage a bit, and I'm going to have the African Big Five. I've got the lion, Just got to get the other 4, and then that's it. Or that's all she wrote.
So, okay, so the Mario theme, I have to ask real quick, where did that come about? Because you're the only person that I've ever seen in my entire life who has yeah, I'm pretty sure you're the only person I've ever seen who has a Mario Brothers tattoo.
So
That's unique.
I was 16 years old. I was consuming some alcoholic beverages at a house party. It was like 2, 3 in the morning. This guy's like, does anyone want a tattoo? I was like, yep, let's do it. Got a tattoo. I was pretty drunk at the time. I think I kind of blacked out halfway too. I woke up the next morning and I was like, I'm pretty sure I got a tattoo last night. And I was just dreading looking down at my arm. I'm like, God knows what's happening. I pull up, I take my shirt off, look in the mirror, and I'm like, what the fuck? Is that Mario? And like, it was a good Mario tattoo. I was like, what is going on here? In hindsight, found out the guy's actually a tattoo artist and, not just some like dude that just has a tattoo gun. So that's fortunate. It could have been a lot worse. But yeah, I ended up having my first tattoo was a gigantic Mario on my right arm. And I was like, that's what happens.
So was there do you recall having any sort of input onto what went on your arm?
I just remember sitting down, taking a shot of tequila, looking him in the face and being like, all right, go for it, whatever you want to do. And he could have doodled on my forehead and I would have been like, wouldn't have known.
And he just so happened to choose Mario.
Yeah, which, could be, like big Mario fan, but like, I was like thinking, man, it could have been so much worse. Like there could have just been a gigantic penis on my arm, like the most detailed penis in the world.
Yeah, I was, the first time I saw you fight, I was looking, I was like, is that? No, is it? It is. That's Mario. I was like, oh, okay, wow, maybe he's like a hardcore Mario guy. You never know. So I had to ask. It sounds like you have like a pretty hardcore story about how that happened. Your parents must have been real happy when they saw it.
Oh man, I was not in a good spot for quite a while after that. But in hindsight, it was like we laugh about it now, but at the time, my mum and dad were like, "What were you thinking?"
I could only imagine the scorn and the extra chores they probably made you do for a long time.
And now it's funny how that works because, like, obviously, I'm a parent now. My daughter's almost 2, and I'm just thinking, man, if she did some shit like that, I would just lose my mind. I'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, I would go absolutely ballistic. Yeah, I'm a parent myself. I think I would go absolutely ballistic. But that's a cool story, man. Like that's just funny. I had to ask. I wanted to know. Now we know the answer. Justin, I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Before I let you go, I always think it's good form for me to give you the microphone. If there's anyone you'd like to thank, if there are any sponsors you'd like to talk about, I'd like you to have that chance.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, obviously, first off, I'd give a shout out to my coaches, Alex and Joe. I got to credit those guys. I'm very fortunate, like I sort of touched on before, then the work that I'm doing with them, the time they're investing into me, man, I feel very blessed, very fortunate. So yeah, big shout out to Master Splinter and Volko for all the work that they're doing for me. Enhanced, the guys at Enhanced. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my daughter, Justice Junior Perez. She's like my biggest sort of motivator outside of my goal of being a world champion. So yeah, I think I'm looking at my career ahead. I'm looking at the stuff I'm doing. I'm looking at the fights I'm having, and every time I'm just thinking like, this is another example to show that you can just work hard and do what you want to do and pursue what you want to pursue 100%, no matter what it is. So yeah, that's kind of that's my biggest sort of push outside of my own selfish goal of wanting to be a world champion in the sport.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Justin, I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the show after you win your next fight, and then we're getting ready to talk about a title, your title shot. I'd love to have you back, and I'd love to be able to chat your brain about that. And hopefully we have Luigi on your arm by then too.
Man, honestly, it's more than likely going to be a done deal. Go out there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, get paid, get a tattoo, and just be talking about title fight moving forward.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Lockjaw Van Heerden.